if this is a really great style when it's used in conjunction with some of the others. But if it's just pace setting all the time, what you're going to find is that just other people feel like they don't have decision-making authority. They're not able to figure things out for themselves. You can come off as overbearing. You can come off as micromanaging. And so it can be really negative. Whenever I'm working with new people leaders, one of the first things I talk about is leadership styles, because many people aren't exposed to that many different leaders early in their career. And so they might think that the style of their last manager kind of is leadership. And so by explaining to them that there are all these different styles, different ways to lead, and that the best way to be a leader is to get good at all of these different styles, it really sets them up for success. But the interesting thing is when I'm working with these new leaders, especially technical managers or really strong individual contributors, they tend to fall into one specific leadership style, which is kind of a trap. And that's why I want to talk about it today. So welcome to the Leadership Launchpad. My name is Matt Jertson. I'm excited for this first solo episode of 2025. That doesn't even sound like a real year to me. It's just crazy. If you've ever listened to me talk about leadership styles before, you probably know that I always talk about Daniel Goleman's work and the 6 leadership styles that he identified in an HBR article 25 years ago. And so I want to start by going over those leadership styles and then highlight the one that is kind of the common pitfall I see for new technical managers, and then talk about some ways that you can get out of it. So the 6 leadership styles that Goleman talks about, and I highly recommend you read this article because it's titled Leadership That Gets Results. And the first leadership style is a commanding leadership style, where it's very much like, do what I say, giving orders, barking orders, that kind of thing, very, very authoritative. There's the visionary leadership style, which is, rallying people around some view of the future that you're going to go create, and it's going to be amazing. Let's go, follow me. We're going to go do this amazing thing. You have pace setting, which is about do things how, I'm going to show you how to do these things. Follow me. I'm going to tell you the best way to do everything. Let's go. Affiliative leadership really prioritizes relationship building on a team. So you may even sacrifice short-term performance on the team, or, not give certain kinds of feedback because you really value building relationships between a team. There's the democratic leadership style, where when you're making decisions, it's all about, making sure everybody's heard, getting to a consensus, just judging the opinions of the whole team. And then finally, there's the coaching leadership style, where you spend the majority of your time really focusing on the long-term bench depth of the talent on your team, helping each individual, that kind of thing. The first important thing to understand about all these leadership styles is that there is not one best leadership style. There is only the leadership style that is best in a specific situation. And in the article, Goleman goes into research where they were kind of trying to connect each individual leadership style with performance of teams out in the workplace. And they did find some of that, but the key finding to me is that the best leaders always were able to exhibit at least 4 of the leadership styles. So depending on the situation, depending on the individual that they were working with, they would change their leadership style. And so coming back to new managers, most of us probably have our preferences for the kind of leader that we naturally are. And it's likely based on our personality, and then also based on the kinds of leadership that we've seen in the past. And so we kind of pick up those traits and then start applying them as a leader. And so new leaders tend to have 1 or 2 styles that they're kind of really good at and rely on. And then the point of developing them as leaders is to get them to focus on new things. And this is something that I do a lot in my programs, where I ask people, what's a style that you're weakest at? Let's identify a particular behavior of that style, and let's figure out how we can strengthen some of those other styles so that you basically have more tools in your tool belt. And this is something that any leader at any level and any amount of experience should probably be thinking about and be working on. But the interesting thing that I've found is that the most common leadership style I see in new people managers, and especially really strong individual contributors that were just promoted, is the pace setter style. And so I want to spend a minute talking about it, because when I took kind of the assessment for these leadership styles, when I first learned about them, I will admit that I was a pace setter. And at first I was really excited, because you read the description of a pace setter, kind of like I said before, leading from the front, showing the team the best way to work, pushes really strong results, has really high standards, attention to detail. Let's go. I'm like, yeah, that's me. That sounds like a great leader. But then you realize that then you keep reading and you see the effect that it has on the team. And it's one of only 2 leadership styles that over the long term has a negative effect on teams. It creates, it makes people apathetic. It demoralizes them. It leads to burnout. And so if you think about it a little bit closer, it makes sense, because you're out there, showing people what to do, but that can really easily tip over into micromanagement, right? And also, I think if somebody has been promoted, especially when they first get promoted to being a people leader, they're promoted because of their individual excellence, right? They were the best individual contributor, and so they were made a people manager. And so almost by definition, your performance standard is too high for other people on the team to meet automatically without you helping them. And so you try to hold this high standard for everybody. And what it leads you to do is just, give them the answer instead of letting them come to the answer. It means you do things yourself rather than letting the team do it, because you're worried they're not going to do it as good as you are. You don't give a lot of coaching. And granted, if this is a really great style when it's used in conjunction with some of the others, but if it's just pace setting all the time, we're always saying like, let's go, like follow, we're in the trenches together. Many times what you're going to find is that just other people feel like they don't have decision-making authority. They're not able to figure things out for themselves. You can come off as overbearing. You can come off as micromanaging. And so it can be really negative. And that's why I say it's a trap. If it's such a trap, why do so many people fall into this? Well, I think kind of like I said, there's a couple reasons for this. One of which I already mentioned is the idea that like the reason why you were promoted was because you had this really high standard of work. And so you start looking at other people and you're thinking like, they can't do it as good as I do. It was a common thing in the military. In the military, we always joked that every commander, when they got promoted, when they got a new job, they were always trying to do their last job, right? Like a group commander was trying to be a squadron commander. A wing commander was trying to be a group commander. That's because they knew how to do that job. And so when they got promoted, they didn't know this new thing. And so their default was to just fall back and say, I'm going to keep doing that last thing. And that's what can happen. You get promoted, you don't know how to be people manager yet. And so you just say, well, I'm already the best at all this individual contributor work, so I'm just going to do that. So that's why it's really easy to fall into. The other reason is because sometimes I don't think we do a good enough job explaining what the role of a people manager is. And as an individual contributor, you were judged on your individual output of work. But now as a people manager, you are judged by the collective output of your team. And so it's just a little switch where you need to stop thinking about what can I do and start thinking about what can we do. And if we don't do a good enough job explaining that, then people don't make that switch. So of all these 6 leadership styles, pace setting is the most common one. It is understandable why individual contributors fall into that, and yet it is a trap that can lead to negative impact on the team. So how do we get out of this? The nice thing is that it can be pretty easy. If you are sitting here listening to this and thinking, I might be a pace setter, or I'm relying on pace setting too much. Awareness, I think, is the key. And so like some simple ways that you can do this and make sure you're trying to step back. Number 1 is when somebody comes to you with a problem, don't immediately give them a solution. Ask them what they think the solution is. Employ a little bit of coaching in this situation, right? Or maybe have them work with somebody else on the team. Say, so-and-so is really covering this really well, or really knows that system or that program or whatever it is really well. Maybe you can go ask them. It might feel like you're not being helpful, but what you are doing is empowering your team to solve problems themselves, right? It is not your job to solve every problem for the members of your team. It is your job to empower them to solve their own problems. There's going to be enough things that they can't solve, right? Because of, just like hierarchy within a company. That's where you come in, right? When you need resources from outside the team, that's where you can really come in. And sure, I'm not saying never give a solution, but from time to time, if you think you're maybe relying a little bit too much on pace setting, just from time to time, when people come to you with a question, ask them what they think the answer is. Don't just jump right in. So that's number one. Number two, and this is really important, really hesitate or stop when you think about like taking over other people's work, or when new work comes into your team. Don't immediately think that you need to do it. Think about who else on your team can do it. Again, from an individual contributor mindset, it feels like you're passing off work, like you're not doing your job. But the point is, you have a new job, and every new thing that comes onto your plate is taking time away from you coaching your team, growing your team, getting obstacles out of their way, getting more resources, doing whatever it is to make the overall team more successful. So that's the second, the second thing is flip that switch in your mind. And rather than every time a new task comes in thinking, how am I going to do it? Think about how we are going to do it. I've heard this described a lot of times for business leaders as, it's changing the mindset from how or what to who, right? It's not how am I going to do this, it's who's going to do this. And when you can make that transition, that's when you're really getting into the people manager thought process versus the individual contributor mindset. And so if you can do just those two things, just when somebody comes to you, says like, hey, we got to do this thing, or I have this problem, don't immediately give them a solution. And then when new work comes in, don't immediately think, how am I going to do this? Think, who is best to do this? If you can make those two switches, I guarantee you're going to go a long way out of, because you don't want to get rid of pace setting. Don't get me wrong. Like, again, when we look at Goleman's work, he made very clear, long-term is when this is bad. There are definitely situations, there's emergency situations, something's going wrong, the system's down, it's all hands on deck. You are this great individual contributor, and there are key moments where you can come in and show your team, especially on technical teams, show your team that you're still technically savvy, that you know what's going on, that you're able to, that you have the skills to lead this team. You definitely still need to do that. But you can't always do that. There are many times where you need to be thinking about who else, you need to be empowering the team to solve problems, because that is how you are going to make your team more successful over the long term. If you think you're a pace setter, if you know you're a pace setter, I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you next time on the Leadership Launchpad. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you are looking for help turning your organization's great engineers into great managers, me and my team at Better Everyday Studios would love to help. We deliver targeted and interactive training workshops that are designed to help build the 3 fundamental skills of any new manager: building trust, giving feedback, and setting goals. Reach out to me through matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can start making your organization better every day.